All right. Welcome to the panel discussion around the SecOps Cloud Platform and how this approach brings value to those running MSSPs and other security service providers. My name is Christopher Luft. I'm one of the founders here at LimaCharlie, and I will be moderating the discussion. With us today is Paul Ihme, co-founder and managing principal at Soteria, and Lee Sult, former co-founder and CTO at Horangi Cybersecurity, former chief incident response officer at Black Panda, and now principal investigator at Cyber Triage. Thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To get started, maybe you can tell me how the SecOps Cloud Platform enhances the capabilities and offerings of MSSPs in delivering comprehensive and efficient security services to your clients.
Yeah, I can start there. I think, first and foremost, what we love about LimaCharlie is it's really provided us a platform to kind of centralize all the things we're doing for our different clients. So, we started off using the EDR, like many folks who worked with LimaCharlie, but over the years, being able to just add capabilities onto that and not have to, manage a bunch of different tools and platforms everywhere. We got a client who wants to bring in their AWS logs. We can bring those in here. We can bring in Office 365. We can bring in Microsoft Defender telemetry if we want to, and play with that data all in one separate place. All in one single place instead of a bunch of separate places. But I think in addition to that, like having that central piece, it's also the ability to be able to then shoot out any pieces of that data to other platforms as we need, right? So if we want to do some detection and response work in the LimaCharlie platform, but then do more kind of querying or data exploration in Elastic, we can do that, and we can really fine tune what we're sending where and how we control where that data flows, which just gives us a lot of creativity and the ability to customize things for either each client or build really unique solutions to our business, but then benefit all of our clients uniformly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. And definitely for me, it's the built-in integrations and the API first approach. It really enables SecOps culture, right? Where you have to kind of fight for that. With some other platforms out there, and you have to kind of modify your own workflows or your own skill sets to like work with some of these other platforms. But yeah, LimaCharlie, you can bring just about anything in. You can ship data out in very usable formats. I also like that billing is super transparent. So my use case is my use case has been like I come in after the fact. So like there's already a breach. I've got to deploy something. I like using Cyber Triage, or I like using LimaCharlie, and then through that, I have deployed Cyber Triage, and it really makes that it makes that workflow super simple, where I can get new IOCs, or I can identify, a latent piece of malware or a malicious user, and then hit, upload those IOCs into Cyber Triage, and I can see the entire scope very, very quickly. It's just very simple to use, very simple to integrate, and much like Paul said, it doesn't matter to me what pre-existing technology exists or what the logs are, or really even what the formats are. I can just upload anything without a ton of pain.
Awesome, thank you. Could you provide some examples or use cases where the SecOps Cloud Platform has helped you respond to threats more effectively?
Sure. I guess I can start with that one. First, I think it's the ability to deploy whatever package that we just kind of discussed. Like, Cyber Triage is obviously the first one, but there's other times too. Like I've actually deployed Metasploit and things like that to, there's a whole, or Interpreter rather, there's a whole bunch of different use cases there when you have an attacker actually active in the environment. And I think the ease of use to deploy whatever you need to is a huge thing for me versus having to every single time figure out how to write a script. Maybe you don't actually have error logs if the scripts don't fire correctly or whatever. You get a lot more of that out of LimaCharlie. So I think that's the biggest thing for me when there's an actual adversary in the environment. We've already talked about the amount of telemetry that you have, but the interaction with the endpoints is very, very useful.
Yeah, I would zoom in on two things that Lee hit on earlier. One, the ease of onboarding. So we do some incident response work too, and we get somebody that comes in and says, "Hey, we've had an incident. Can you come help?" And we can go and spin up an environment like that, right? And that's a combination of a couple of different things that makes that possible. One is just your model of being able to use a credit card to bring in a new environment. We don't have to go through a sales rep or deal registration process or anything like that. We can just spin it up and create a new organization, and we're off and running. But then also that API first approach that Lee mentioned is also super key with that. So we can spin up that environment, and we have automation in place that we spin up an environment, and then boom, it gets all of our environment configurations that our incident responders want. It deploys all of our threat hunting rules right out the gate, and then we can use the API to interact. If we're using the EDR, for example, we can use that API to interact with all those agents at scale. So, we've got an IOC. We know that this file is malicious, and we need to scope out where that is. It's a quick, couple lines of Python to then go and look for that on every system. And if the system's offline, just tag it to go look for it later on. And then any system that's compromised, you just put the tag compromised on it, or IOC hit or whatever you want to. And it just works, and it's scalable and allows you to really automate things beyond what you can typically do in a GUI. And again, very malleable, right? So it's one of those things where I 100% believe that the SecOps Cloud Platform was not designed for that use case, but it just gives you all these APIs and extendability that you can just be creative with. And hey, what would be cool is if we could do this. Oh, well, we can do that. Like, let's just, we can do this and this and put them together. Good to go.
Awesome. How does the multi-tenancy feature of the SecOps Cloud Platform provide value to you, particularly in terms of resource optimization, cost effectiveness, and simplified management?
Yeah, I think it really just allows us to manage different clients easier, right? So instead of having to, or even, one client who's got separate environments, it's very easy to say, hey, you want us to, separate your European and US assets into different organizations because you want those alerts going into different places, or you want to have different, IT or security teams that have visibility into it. It makes it very easy to divide up those assets. So we can manage multiple clients and multiple tenants like that, but also you can just create multiple tenants for the same client to kind of divide up those assets and allow them to customize how they want to see things. And that's been really handy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Billing, again, super transparent with that too. So it's very easy to pass that cost on to the customer without having to do crazy back end math or like go back and forth with some sales rep somewhere. I've definitely had situations in the past where, like, larger customers, the vendor would be like, "Oh, well, we're going to give this customer a lesser price, so that's what's guaranteed to the customer, but I'm still paying the original price because it's too complicated to figure that out." So I think the cost transparency there too, and the being able to manage different customers is quite important. Outside of that, also is the role-based access controls are just like, there's a lot less accidents, I think, with the format, the way that you guys manage tenants. I think that's quite important. And then lastly, if you get into the point where you got a CFO or you got a sales team or whomever that really wants to do some sort of cost basis analysis, like, who's the most expensive customer, like which features or whatever are we using, but not actually spending money, or what isn't getting monetized properly, and so on. There's a lot more data to actually do that and LimaCharlie than there is really in anything else. Like, I really appreciate the granularity and the access to just about everything.
Oh, that's great. In what way does the SecOps Cloud Platform empower MSSPs to provide real-time visibility, threat detection, and incident response capabilities to their clients in a more effective and timely manner versus the traditional tools that are on the market today?
Yeah, so I think I hit on that a little bit earlier, but I think first is like being able to spin up a new organization, a new client environment, and deploy all of your rules across all of them very effectively. But I think beyond that, we're always putting forth new rules and new capabilities. And again, that API first approach, we don't have to do click ops in order to go and make changes to all of our customer environments. We can make that config change at one place and then push it out to all of our clients very seamlessly using those APIs and using the Hive features and using the automation and the configuration tools that are provided to us. And that helps us make sure that things are being done consistently, right? I think that's that's like the number one most important thing to do anything at scale is you have to do it consistently across everything. You can't have a different setup or a different rule or a different process for different clients or different endpoints or whatever. So being able to, like, oh, I'd like to make this change, but I don't want to, make it on 80 organizations and have to click through this thing 80 times. We don't have to do that, right? You can maybe try it at one organization, test it out, and then push it out to the world and not have to deal with it. So I think that's really the key lever to efficiency. And then I'll say that the other big thing that we've seen that's drawn us to this as well is the speed of detection, right? So, events come across the wire and into the platform, and that detection will hit our back end immediately, right? There's no kind of lag time waiting for a query to run or anything like that, or doing these scheduled queries to see if something hit every 5 minutes or something along those lines. It's just instantaneous, and that allows us to go and find things a lot of times before native products will alert on them themselves.
Very similar experience with the speed of detection there. I think the easiest way to demo that to, say, a customer or somebody else is when you actually, like, you can just spin up a VM and register that VM on in your platform, and it's seconds, right? It's like by the time you alt tab back over to the other screen, it's already registered in the platform, which is crazy. Like, nobody else does it that fast. But something else we didn't touch on was how easy it is to integrate other Yara signatures or detection and response rules from other folks. It's most of the time, or there's been lots of times where I've waited on a vendor to upload a signature, and they might not even have access to the attack or that campaign, so they just don't have the data to write the signatures or whatever. In this case, the signatures are very simple. They're much easier to just copy and paste. I've definitely gotten some across Slack and Slack and Discord and so on, in a pinch. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to make this scalable, you just point it at a GitHub repo and you're basically done. Or you go through the add-ons, and Paul's team does a great job with the signatures that they're doing. And I think that's a huge piece already, is you don't have to go through. You're not beholden to a single vendor's rules. Other rules aren't exorbitantly expensive, and when new stuff comes out, just the cutting edge stuff, it's pretty easy to just copy and paste or just point it in a new GitHub repo.
And I'll add on to that too, is I think another key differentiator for us is not having an arbitrary limit on how many custom signatures and custom rules you can have. Yeah. I've seen that in other platforms. You can do your own custom things, but only 100 or something like that. And we've got well over 500, maybe 600 signatures in place at any given time right now, and that's fine. That helps.
Oh, I love hearing that. It's working as intended.
Yeah.
Can you discuss specific examples or use cases where your MSSP have leveraged the SecOps Cloud Platform to enhance your service offering and provide value-added service solutions to your clients?
I think go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'd say certainly, and again, it goes back to that creativity, right? So being able to leverage different event types. So the fact that different sensors and different capabilities will emit different events, we can do things where we've had clients hey, we would really like to know if the server ever goes offline, and you can't write this device went offline for every system, because then every time somebody closes their laptop, you're going to get an alert that's going to flood you and be super annoying. But being able to do the granularity of rules that you can create, where I want to alert if this condition happens on an asset or on a sensor that has this tag, or with this host name specifically, or anything like that, is super powerful. And then another thing that we've really enjoyed is the sleeper sensor capability that you can go out and deploy for a very low cost sensors and sleeper modes that don't cost the clients a lot of money. But if we have an incident response retainer with them, it allows us to come in and start an incident response and instantly have a presence on their systems without having to, go through the process of doing an enterprise-wide software deployment in order to give us that access. And I think the key there is that, anybody who's done incident response for third parties has run into that situation where the incident happens and the first thing to do is just like yank the plug from the internet and take the entire organization offline. And so if you're trying to do incident response quickly, it used to be that you would fly in with your Pelican cases and start doing images, but we're way past that as an industry, thankfully now. But people still do that. And the non-Pelican case, doing remote forensics doesn't work if you're not connected to the internet. So having that ability there and making sure that people understand, like, if you just call us, we can take these systems offline using the sensors and then re-enable them more easily without you having to go pull the plug and then have to figure out how to reboot your entire network. I think is a massive step forward, and it's saved a lot of headache.
Yeah, I'd have to second that. I think the biggest challenge that I ever face in any incident response is the initial deployment, the initial scoping and initial deployment. And when you do it in a peacetime environment, it'll take a while. It might take a month or a few months to get those sensors pushed out and so on. But when you're there and there's an active incident and tensions are high and people are worried about their jobs, the victim or folks in the victim organization, a ton of them will just experience protectionism. So you'll get coverage on 80% of the systems, but they'll try to hide some of them sometimes. And these aren't like surreptitious people, or these aren't like bad people, right? They're just scared. They got mouths to feed at home and so on. So I think that sleeper agent thing is like really solves a huge problem for investigators that have the opportunity to take advantage of that.
That's huge.
How does the interoperability and openness of the SecOps Cloud Platform enable MSSPs to integrate with other security tools and technologies, resulting in a more comprehensive and cohesive security ecosystem?
I think we've touched on this a good bit already, but really it boils down to, so one, it just doesn't matter to me which technology that you have, right? So that solves a lot of problems. That solves a lot of problems already. So it's not a fact of having to wait for licenses, or for a customer to have licenses expire and then get a new technology that integrates with my stack as a service provider or whatever. Just like whatever you have, it just works, right? So you come in and you have that thing that all CISOs and all incident responders want. You have visibility, and you make with it what you want. I've had some customers that are like, wait, we don't want this much visibility. We've never had this before, and this is not as clean of an environment as we'd like to have. So you kind of have to help them through that every once in a while. But I think that's it. It comes back again to the interoperability and the built-in add-ons.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes back to just allowing your team to be creative. Like, we have this thing that we can plug data into and then make things happen, and then spit the same or modified data out to somewhere else. And that just opens you up to tons and tons of possibilities of, and sometimes it just comes from the most random places, like, non-security use cases and things like that, of like, well, what if we could just like take this data in and then like fire an alert? And I think, Chris, you did a YouTube video one time where you made LimaCharlie alerts, like, change the color of your like lights in your house or something like that. And, you can do weird things like that. And, there's silly, debatably useful things like that you can do, but then it starts getting you thinking about, how else you can leverage those capabilities and just like strange ideas come out sometimes.
Yeah, that was a fun project. I changed the color of my hue lights when somebody opened a certain file on my laptop. So just proof of concept.
Right. That's what it was.
Yeah. So in terms of compliance and regulatory requirements, how does the SecOps Cloud Platform assist MSSPs in meeting the stringent security standards and ensuring the protection of sensitive client data?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that gets help there is data retention, right? Being able to just say like, hey, we're gonna capture this telemetry, or we're gonna capture these logs, and by the way, everything is stored by default for 365 days. That answers a lot of questions and shuts down some of the debate sometimes, because that checks off that data retention box that people need, and just allows them to know that they can have that. Same thing with other data sources, like just being able to pull all that information in, even if it's not an active detection or response case, you got it. And if you need it later on, you can then grab it out of that data store, shove it into some other platform for analysis, or for somebody else to take a look at, or to provide that data elsewhere. And it just works. and it makes it easy to get it done, so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I think there's a few checkboxes there, depending on which compliance scheme you're beholden to, or regulation, or whatever it may be. The other thing that comes to mind, though, is more of an idea, nothing that I've actually deployed before, but just compliance monitoring and reporting in general, right? So, some of that can be gathered straight through LimaCharlie's telemetry. Some of that can be aggregated through other data sources in the environment, and you can also use the deployable payload feature to deploy some compliance checking thing and draw that data back to create a much more automated report. So I think there's a lot of possibilities around this one.
How does the SecOps Cloud Platform enable MSSPs to differentiate themselves in a competitive market by delivering tailored and customized security solutions that meet the specific needs of your clients?
And for me, I'm not the traditional MSSP, and I haven't been, where you have, eyes on glass 24 hours a day sort of thing. But having worked with MSSPs my entire career, I think the biggest thing for me is communication and being able to answer hard questions, right? It's like, what data do you have? And most of the time the answer to that is, I don't know. And I have to wait some number of days. I'm like, okay, well, what data do you not have? And the answer is also, I don't know. And I think just being able to have, again, it comes back to the interoperability, right? It's all there. There's not 15 tabs you have to go through to figure out whether this is there or that's not there. If you want to look at how long you have data, that's pretty easy to get access to, and so on. So for me, the biggest differentiator is just like quality of service. It's just there and it's simple to use, and you can answer the hard questions, because all incident responders and all MSSPs get hard questions either from the customer, the compliance auditor, or the regulator, or outside counsel.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we're more of an MDR than an MSSP, but it gives us those MDR capabilities where we can find the bad things, but then using the platform, we can automate a lot of response actions, or use it just for alerting. So our incident response team can take response actions, but the extensibility of that, I think, is really helpful. And then also the granularity of things that you can do with the DNR type of rules to say, hey, we've got our standard library of detection and response rules that we apply to all of our customers out of the box. But if there's a custom use case or a specific issue that a client needs to have visibility on, then we can do that. We can, again, get very creative and thoughtful with that, and not say like, well, we can't really do that because we're running up against our limit on custom detectors, or the platform doesn't support that. We can do pretty much anything with the data that's coming in and use it in ways that aren't always obvious or intuitive, and that allows us to be more partner-like with our customers, right? So we don't have to just say that, hey, we're using, we're going to give you the LimaCharlie, platform. We're going to take in your logs from this, that, and the other. And we're going to spit out the sections, and then, whatever else you need to do is on you, right? We can have customers come to us with the hard problems and be able to partner with them to solve them, instead of saying like, sorry, it's not in the SOW, right? It gets our folks excited because like, oh, we've got this tool and we can figure out how to make it do this cool trick.
Awesome. Some great answers. It's great for me to hear all this too. It makes me feel great about the work we're doing.
Yeah. I think there's another piece of that too, that it's another idea that I've had that's like, this is a possibility that's unlocked here. It's like great automation capabilities with the API first approach. And I wonder how much of that SOAR workflow can actually get integrated, right? So like, you have an alert where a new user is created in your organization. Does that user have MFA enabled yet, right? It's like, is that something that can be built into LimaCharlie? And I suspect it probably can, with the right, Python scripts on the back end, using the API the right way, in those situations for those customers that just can't afford SOAR, or just don't want it because the organization's not quite big enough yet. There are some interesting workflows that can be enabled here with not a ton of effort.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we're bumping up against time. So this is the last one I got for you.
Sure.
What opportunities do you see for MSSPs and other security service providers to leverage the evolving capabilities of the SecOps Cloud Platform to expand their service offerings and address emerging cybersecurity challenges in a rapidly evolving threat landscape?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just, one of the emerging problems that everybody's having is security is moving off of the traditional like on-prem network and into the cloud in different environments, right? Whether it's traditional cloud platforms like our AWSs and GCPs, but also the just random SaaS applications. And thankfully, I think SaaS applications are starting to get better, some better than others at making audit log data available to the consumers and to the companies that are using them. So I think that's where a lot of the value is going to start coming from is finding where are your critical apps that are outside of those traditional workloads that these are covered, right? This problem's been solved. How do you get telemetry or logs off of your Windows devices? That's a solved problem. But as we get more and more into these other platforms, the ability for the cloud platform, the SecOps Cloud Platform, to be able to just take in telemetry from anywhere and do things with it and then report things and then send it elsewhere. I think it just unlocks more possibilities and will allow folks to kind of adapt as new things come along. So having that building block approach where we've got these core capabilities and this stuff works and it's going to get the job done. But also we've got more of this abstraction layer that allows you to kind of tinker with it and make things, be what you want them to be. That's going to, I think people just need to be creative and try to think outside the box of how can I use these in a way that's not been predefined and is not, necessarily what's on the label of what it's intended to do. But what can it do, right? And tap into that hacker mindset.
Yeah, totally. Putting that services leader hat on, I think, or after the fact services leader, less of the MSSP role. For me, it comes down to response services, compliance auditing or checking, which could probably be done on a quarterly or regular basis rather simply, even if you're just using the sleeper agent, right? I think there's a ton of use cases there for municipalities and college systems and community college systems. And I think lastly is exactly, there's very little for cloud security or cloud visibility from a security perspective, and what's there just charges you a fortune. So I think it also comes back down to the transparency and costing and the cost predictability. It's this is the platform to innovate with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, gentlemen. This was a great conversation and music to my ears to hear our customers speak so highly of what we're doing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Congrats on getting it here. Can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you.